Good morning. So yesterday we discussed the question of inference, and some questions were given to you as a home assignment, right? So let me just start with the home assignment, the questions that were assigned to you. All right, so some students have started joining in now. This passage number 1, non-CSAT section we have already completed. I think it is only the non-CSAT section, a couple of passages are left. Yes, like passage number 7 and 8 we did, passage number 9 is left, and 9 is a complex inference, right? So you remember the complex inference, I told you that there you need to be, sometimes the examiner forms a questions of this nature where the inference, the correct option is not directly related. However, it is connected, but you have to just do them. You need to go for analysis and establish that distant relation between the two. So this passage number 9, the question is very specific. With reference to the passage, it can be inferred that due to the weight of its aircraft, Indigo Airlines. So due to the weight of Indigo Airlines, and now you have to choose a claim on profit or loss or break-even. Like option A says just manages to pay for the cost, any break-even point, or has made profits. It clearly makes a claim of profit. And C could either be earning a profit or operating at the break-even. I mean, it has not mentioned loss part, right? No loss is mentioned in the C option. Or D option says cannot be determined. So as you know that inference means a deduction, and for that deduction you must have sufficient data present in the para, right? So when you read this para, while the way an airline handles its passenger complaints and on-time performance are the visible indicators of an airline's operational discipline, right? Now, this is something that authors, this is not related to the subject, right? He is generalizing. And then he said there are other not so perceptible parameters. Look at this plural form, not so perceptible parameters that decide, and then author gives the details. If a particular flight paid for itself, or has made a profit, or was operated at a loss. Paid for itself means break-even point. So break-even, the profit, or the flight was operating at a loss, or it was a break-even point, all the three possibilities, because there are only three possibilities. Either there will be a profit in a venture, or there will be a loss, or it will be a break-even. So these three are mentioned here, and these three are decided by not so perceptible parameters. Perceptible means that cannot be easily understood. So, and the weight of aircraft is one of them. So all such students who analyze, who focused on this sentence must have got their answer correct. Weight of an aircraft is one of them. So this profit, loss and break-even is decided on the basis of different parameters, not just one parameter. An author has mentioned only weight of aircraft in this paragraph. That weight of aircraft also decides this. However, there are other factors also. Let me just give them a name, maybe A and B, other stuff. Now, whatever they earn in terms of ticket or advertisement and all that, so A and B other factors are also there. So when the author himself has said that weight of aircraft is just one factor that decides profit or loss or break-even, is one of the factors. So it is not the only factor, hence we cannot we can't choose any claim which is just talking about managed to pay, like break-even point. We don't have sufficient data. Similarly, we don't have data for B which says has made profit. How do we know on the basis of one parameter, weight of aircraft, that it has made profit? This is only a possibility, but we don't know whether it incurred losses through A and B, then ultimately maybe towards loss or break even. So we don't have sufficient data for even B nor for even C, because it has not included all the three possibilities. It has mentioned only two possibilities, break even and profit. So the correct answer is option D, Delhi. How many of you chose option D? Raise hands. It was a very good question of a complex inference, that if you notice the argument, otherwise if you go after this line, weight of aircraft is one of them, then author tells you that Indigo flies the lightest aircraft, and how it saves money because less fuel is spent. So all this detailing is given there. All right. Very good, Biswajit. You nailed it, and this was a good question. So be careful that inference demands a very accurate analysis of the data, right? So if, I mean, all such students who go for the exact and the relevant part of the para so that they can evaluate it, they will be, of course, they will solve their questions correctly. All such students who go for feelers means that author has not given the complete concrete information, but the option says something, and they have just got some kind of, they apply their assumption and they go on the feelers, they will of course lose out. For example, in this question, if you just focus on the last part where author says the Indigo flies the lightest aircraft and it saves fuel, and this way it becomes a serious money that it saves, they will jump the guns and they will go for the profit part. So always be careful that in inferences, some of the questions just demand very, very accurate and minute analysis of the relevant part. Fine. So I suppose everybody has understood. Same question is passage number 10 of the same level. Again, it's a complex inference, just because if you do not focus on the, the key information or the key word, you are bound to commit an error. So dear, this one talks about the recent recession. The recent recession is also caused by the lending policies of banks. Also cause means there are other causes as well, right? So word also gives you this. So recent recession, if I say present here with RR, it is also caused by, so it is caused by lending policy of banks, LPOB I write here, but there could be other causes as well, because also word is written there, so they may be X or they may be, so just as a symbol I'm writing one other cause, right? So what is lending policy of banks? Author explains, during the recession, banks were hardly lending, which further aggravated the liquidity crisis in the market. But this behavior of the banks is due to the tightening of regulatory standards by the RBI. So the banks will lend more if the regulatory standards are relaxed. Right? So the banks will lend more if the regulatory standards are relaxed. Now, this lending policy of the banks, as author is describing here, in fact is, it is decided by, it is caused by different factors. There are more than one factor. One factor is described here, that recession is exacerbated due to LPOB, lending policy of the banks. And what is lending policy? Author has mentioned. How does it affect? Author has mentioned. And then he concludes that so the banks will lend more if the regulatory standards are relaxed. And who controls the regulatory standards? RBI. So when you go to the options, option A, the credit worthiness of the borrowers is not affected by the economic recession. It is going opposite to the passage, because the credit worthiness of borrowers was affected because the banks were not lending money. So A cannot be an inference. It seems to be anti-inference. B says once the flow of the credit is improved, the economy will come out of recession. Nobody should choose B, because it is only talking about lending policy of banks. So once that particular cause is addressed, the whole problem will be sorted out. How can we say when there are other causes as well? So as the author says, recent recession is caused by lending policies of the bank, but he says also caused by, it means there are other causes as well. So unless the other causes X, Y, Z are addressed, or both causes are addressed, how can we say that recession it will come out of? So just working on one part cannot give you the sufficient information. So for B option, it is again data inadequate. Option C, the imposition of tighter regulatory standards. It means related to liquidity policy of banks. Imposition of tighter regulatory standard is the most significant factor in exacerbating the economic recession. Exacerbate means to make something bad or worse. So the imposition of tighter regulatory standard is the most significant factor in exacerbating the economic recession. This option is again wrong, because you don't know that how come LPOB is on the top of the list or XYZ is on the top of the list or other causes. So since you don't have the data, that's why you should focus on the superlative degree the most, right? And I think this time it is going to be, I think, some fifth or sixth time when you have seen that superlative degree has been used to say that it is the most important or most serious. Like we did a passage in yesterday in the same sheet when author was talking about open defecation, and then one of the inference was written that it was the most serious problem in health problem in India. This one is talking about the most significant factor exacerbating the economic recession. So dear, option C is also incorrect. The imposition of tighter regulatory standard is the most significant factor in exacerbating the economic recession. Option D is the correct answer. Now all the students who have chosen Parth and others as option C, they did not notice the superlative degree and the word that also caused by, it means other causes are as well. So we don't know that LPOB is on the top of the list. There are agencies other than banks that influence the credit supply in the economy. Yes, and case in point, as mentioned in the passage, RBI. So RBI is one such agency that influences the credit supply in the economy, because here, as per the context, banks are the ones that directly deal with the customers. They give money. So who got option D? Biswajit, what is your answer this time? Did you miss it or hit it? Now the CSAT part I will go to. Folks, now we go to the CSAT section. Already solved passage number 1. Passage 2 we have done. 3, 4, 5 and 6. 7 was done. 8th, yes, 8th you see this open defecation problem, and again here this option B, open defecation is the most important public health problem of India. So be careful of the superlative degrees, pay attention to that. Passage number 9 we have done, computers. It was talking about critical inference. All the students are aware that critical inference will always be based on the critical point made by the author. So always choose the option that is based on the main point that author is established, more or less like a corollary. More or less like a corollary. And the choice of the words, the language you need to be careful of. Like this option said, computers are not completely safe. Had it said, computers are completely unsafe, would have been wrong. Completely unsafe. So thoda sa choice idhar udhar, to be careful of the words, the choice of words, because your future bureaucracy and diplomacy is all about the word, the choice of words, and how careful and attentive you are. So while evaluating the options, pay attention to that. So up to 10 we have done. Thank you. And now passage 11 onwards. Now passage 11 was asked in the year 2020. Yes, 2020 it was asked. And this passage, the correct answer should be option C. Wetlands need to be reinforced as more than just open sources of water. Now, in case anyone has chosen option B, has been trapped by matching word trick. Engineering water system should be modernized and further augmented, whereas engineering water system is mentioned in the passage but not doing its job properly. its author says efforts at engineering water systems are thus efforts at augmenting water supply. Augmenting means to strengthen water supply rather than strengthening the capacities of ecological system. So that is the existing problem with the water engineering water system, that it does not take care of the sources of water, rather it is only focused on supply of water. So how can we choose option B, which says engineering water system should be modernized? Now modernized, but it is not mentioning the exact lacking that it should address. The exact problem raised by the author is that it does not take care of the preservation of the sources of water. So it just says modernize. Modernize is more related to technology and all that, not necessarily related to the preservation. And further augmented, now supply must again be strengthened. So again dear, this option is weak option, and so for passage 11 it should have been C option. Passage number 12, bank credit to industrial sector has started shrinking. This passage was again asked in I think 2019 or 2020. So option C is the right answer. India lacks the mechanism to deal with the failure of banks. Clearly I think this is mentioned. And so let me just complete these answers, and in case of doubt you can ask me. Passage 13 is inference is asked, and here multi statements are given, 1 to 5 statements. I must tell you that generally assumption questions or implication questions or corollary questions may have multi statements, but inferences are generally multi statements are not given. Only a couple of questions we will see in the CSAT papers where multi statement was given, but it's a common practice in assumption of giving multi-statements, is a common practice for assumption questions. So here author talks about Pusa Arhar 16, a particular so the correct answer should be option C. For passage 13, C option. Passage 14, the correct answer is option B, Bombay. Option B, Bombay for 14. And for the last question, 15, option D for Delhi is the right answer. Now, let me know your doubts. So, starting from 11 to 15, there were 5 questions. You can also mention your score, 4 out of 5 or 5 out of 5. Your accuracy rate is good. Most of the students who respond, their accuracy rate is good. However, like yesterday you were hitting 3 out of 5, so those students now make a little more efforts in terms of analyzing the data and finding the relevant part. If you just focus on that part, you will get it. So don't just accept the option. Take it as a claim, and you as an observer has to find out which part of the passage is supporting that, whether that support is sufficient and whether it is logically connected. Right? Keeping all these basics on mind, and then you can proceed. So 3 वालों को आज jump करके थोड़ा 4 out of 5 का कोशिश करना पड़ेगा. So dear, ये हो गया answers. Any doubts? Your score and doubts quickly. After that, then we will go for the practice sheet. I gave you inferences questions from practice sheet. There were 9 questions, 9 or 13 questions I think. Okay. So 15th, you have a doubt. You see, it talks about IoT, Internet of Things. Devices are cheap commodity items. Addressing security would add to the cost. But addressing security would add to the cost. So this class of items proliferating with new applications, many home appliances. Then author goes into the examples. Monitoring devices, personal convenience devices are part of the IoT. So are fitness trackers, certain medical plants, and computer-like devices in automobiles. Then again author says the IoT is expected to expand exponentially, but new security challenges are daunting. Yes, the security challenges are daunting. So the security point has been addressing security would add to the cost, though it is cheap. Now, if you go for option A, development of enabling technology in India can be a big boost to its manufacturing sector. Development of enabling technologies in India Can be a big boost to its manufacturing sector, because author has specifically mentioned the security issue. New security challenges are daunting. So this statement option, option A cannot be chosen because it just says development of enabling technology. Had it been given the notion of this, that security technology, it only mentions enabling technologies. Can be a big boost to its manufacturing sector. Okay, acha, the big boost, again we do not know, though its expands is clear, it's expanding and it's present almost in all walks of human life. So can be a big boost to its manufacturing sector, lacks data. B, or India is not yet fully ready to adopt IoT in view of the imminent security challenges. Nothing has been given that whether India is ready, or any country's name is not mentioned here. This person has, the author has only mentioned that security challenges are there. So how can we say that India is not fully ready to adopt IoT in the imminent of security challenges? Who knows that India has already taken care of the security challenges, and this author is writing about Brazil or maybe some other country, so you don't have the data for that. So B should not have been chosen. C, life becomes more comfortable with the development of cheap low-end IoT devices. The effect has not been mentioned. Life becomes comfortable or chaotic, not given in this paragraph. But we have the, when you compare, you have the most logical and rational inference you have to choose. Option D, as we go digital, we must recognize the huge threat to internet security from IoT devices, because the security challenges are daunting. So we can't deny this inference, because this is based on the passage. The others are maybe kind of things, right? So like it may be a big boost to India's manufacturing sector, but we don't have exact data. So for which claim you have the data? So for D you have clear-cut data, and the D does not mention about which country, which geographical boundary it is talking about, so it is the best one. I hope it's clear. Anyone else doubtful, does a doubt on passage 12? So passage 12, nobody is doubtful in passage number. So passage 12 on here. Okay, Tista, your point is is valid. Confused on India lacking mechanism. Okay, so you have pinpointed on the name because the no name is given here in the passage, right? India lacks the mechanism to deal with the failure of the banks. However, the economic reforms of 1991 are also mentioned here in this passage, right? Still, I would I would take your point that who knows that 1991 reforms might have happened in other country at the same time also. So we don't know exactly from it is about India or not. So that point is taken. However, the options you have to choose one of the options that is correct. And in case you come across the options which have some visible errors, or so obviously you cannot choose it. So if you look at this passage, bank credit to the industrial sector has started shrinking. Its decline has been a serious concern as credit growth is essential to revive investment. Credit to the industrial sector has started shrinking, and its decline has been a serious concern as credit growth is essential to revive investment. Yes. This passage, starts with the generalization, and this is not the topic, but he introduces the topic with where is the origin of the problem. The problem's origin lie in the incomplete reforms of the last 25 years, right? And institutional change, incomplete reforms, but it is not saying that reforms have not helped India. Please be careful that reforms have not given any positive effect. It just says one particular thing, any specific issue has been raised here, that an institutional change that should have followed the 1991 reforms should have been setting up of a resolution corporation for banks. This did not take place. Resolution corporation of bank was not established. That should have been established. That should have followed the 1991 reforms, right? So this bank, so the mechanism could have been developed, in a market economy with booms and bursts, right? Banks should be allowed to be set up and to fail. Okay. And the problem here is today we cannot shut down banks because there is no proper system to shut them down. So what happens? Weak loss-making banks continue to need more capital. We get to know that this is the author's main issue. That's why he's saying that, this corporation for banks, resolution corporation of bank that should have been established was not established. So it should have followed 1991 reforms, but it did not. Right, it wasn't there, so it becomes difficult for us, and the ailing banks continue to do business and they become a liability. Now, option A, Indian banking system is not able to help the country in its economic growth. It's a complete blanket generalization. Banking system is not able to help. There are such banks that are ailing, and for them the mechanism is not there to shut them down. But it does not mean that the entire banking world, all the banks have not helped Indian economy. That is a totally different point. So A option has visible error, grave error, Tista. Right? I hope that no student of inference would have chosen this option, because the way the statement is written, it has mentioned all Indian banking system, So, और अगर आपने ये choose किया, then again you have to notice the word Indian. Option B, economic reforms that started in 1991 have not helped in improving the economy to expected levels. 1991 reforms have not been mentioned. Hence, you cannot say that the 1991 reforms did not help the economy. Actually, it should have been followed by this corporation of banks, resolution corporation of banks, that was not built. So, it is telling you a kind of lacking, not blaming 1991 reforms that it did not help Indian economy, have not helped in improving the economy to expected levels. So, nowhere you have the data for this. It's data inadequate for this claim. Option D, encouraging the foreign investment in our industrial sector is a good alternative to this sector's dependence on banks for credit. Okay, so it is coming out with an alternative route, whereas the author's point is that resolution bank should be there. Why it should be there? Because this economy, in today's competitive world, the economy with booms and busts, when about short life है उसकी, sudden growth and sudden failure. So booms and busts, they should be allowed to set up and fail. Right, but here ailing banks are, because of the lack of mechanism, they don't have. So when we look at the argument is going into a certain direction, and option D is not addressing the author's issue, but coming with an out-of-box thinking solution. That is not the question. Question is asking you to find out the most logical inference based on the passage. Most logical inference, rational inference based on the passage. So what the author has put forth as an argument, that we should choose. It is not that the author has told us a problem and now you are free to choose any kind of solution. So that's why D loses out, okay? Now that's the reason this problem, India, the word that India is given here has nothing to do. It's not a barrier because it has been repeated. 1991 reform is also mentioned. So this option is C. As the author has mentioned, R and V, these points author has mentioned, but I have told you, yes, you have to be very, mathematical approach you need to have when you evaluate the data. Whether, since the name is not given, so how can I supposed to jump the guns? But suppose the different options had given different names, you could have, gone ahead. So now this, so no other passages left. 12 we have discussed. Acha, doubt in 11, Parth, your doubt in passage number 11. I have just discussed, and Parth, I suppose you must have chosen this option. अगर आपका wrong हुआ है तो you would have chosen B option. Engineering water system should be modernized and further augmented. I have already mentioned the engineering water system is not doing its job properly, as author has mentioned. So what is the point of saying that it should be modernized and further augmented? Further augment means supply oriented more. The exact problem is that efforts at engineering systems are directed towards sucking out more and more water from the sources, and without taking care of its preservation. So B does not make sense. Okay. If you have chosen option A, rivers and other wetlands should be protected under Ramsar Convention, then how do you know what is this? Nowhere in the passage any detail is given. If you go for option D, water supply should not be free of cost so as to prevent its misuse or overuse. This is not the topic of the passage. When the author has asked, examiner has asked you find out the most logical and rational inference, you need to compare the inferences. So whether it is free of cost, already free of cost or not, nowhere it is given. So water supply should not be free of cost. How do we know that it is not free of cost? Right? As so as to prevent its misuse or overuse. So it is not about the misuse or overuse, rather it is about how we deal with the sources of waters. Our attitude is that we take more and more water instead of taking care of making any efforts of preservation of those wetlands and rivers. तो ये misuse और overuse तो surcharge की तरफ जा रहा है, that is totally irrelevant. I think it's done. You chose B. That was my guess, Parth, because generally students tend to this. And you chose B, Parth, just because of the matching word. So please be careful, matching word. With which attitude, that's why I discussed with you tone. With which attitude author has mentioned engineering water system. Is it the same way given here? आपको यहाँ लगता है after reading this engineering water system that it is given in a negative way. It's presented. However, in B option, that negativity is not highlighted. Okay, so we are done with this worksheet of inference where you solve 15 CSAT based question and 10 non-CSAT. In total 25 questions you have solved from this sheet. Now I gave you this practice sheet where inference questions, I suppose all of you must have done that. The beginning part was of assumption, based on assumption, and then some inference questions. So let's start with the inference questions. Same thing, I will write down the answers. So passage number 6, you all must have done it. And all the questions start with the most logical and rational inference. So passage number 6, practice sheet 1, answer should be C. I am not writing the question number, I am only writing the passage number. So passage number 6, it is C. Passage number 7, it should be option A. Passage 8, option D for passage number 8. For passage 9, C. Passage 10, option C. Passage 11, option A. Passage 12, C. Passage 15, D option. Passage 16, option D. Option D. Yes, quickly cross check your answers and let me know the score first. There are in total 13 questions. So ample amount of practice I have given you. 25 questions of inferences earlier, now 13 becomes 38. Then in the tests you will come across the question of inferences. Let me know your score first and then the doubts. So you have got 9 out of 13, 10 out of 13, 10 good score. Okay, 9 and 11. All right, so we start with the passage number 7. First you have the doubt in passage number 7. Nobody has doubt in passage number 6. So a special feature of these questions is that each question starts with find out the most logical and rational inference. And I have said it repeatedly that when you come across this superlative degree, you need to compare more than one options. and there could be, other inferences that are better. So relative merit should be applied. Okay. So this passage talks about devolution, right? Option A is wrong, Anish, because it says emergence of powerful mass leaders is essential to create subnational political entities and thus ensure successful devolution and decentralization. Whereas in the passage it is only given that political legitimacy here means a mass demand from below for the decentralization process, which is able to create a political force. So mass demand from below means by public, the demand from the public, from the masses to for decentralization. So mass demand from the below for the decentralization process, which is able to create a political force for it to take place. Now this one is saying emergence of powerful mass leaders is essential. It means without the emergence of mass leaders, it cannot be, it cannot create, devolution cannot be done. Because the word essential is a very strong word, which means without it, the other thing is not possible. However, it may be, may not be, because the author has only told us that mass demand from below. This mass demand is just a public, particular, this mass demand is driven by or is created by or is demanded by the public as such, or they have mass leaders, or it is like just a group of public, I mean a group of people who are leading it. We don't know from the passage, so hence we don't have sufficient data to say that the emergence of the mass leaders. So option A, actually examiner has played with the words and changed it. The word essential makes it incorrect. Option B says the upper tier of government should impose a devolution. This is going against the passage. The upper tier of government should impose devolution and decentralization on the regional communities by law or otherwise. Whereas in the last sentence, author has said, in many cases, decentralization is initiated by the upper tier of government without sufficient political mobilization for it at the grassroots levels, and in such cases the decentralization process often does not fulfill its objective. So it fails, often it fails, because it is being imposed from the top, not being demanded from the below. So the devolution ka main characteristic has been mentioned here is that there should be a demand from the masses. So option B is just anti. Option A was actually because of essential. Option C is the correct answer. Option D says for devolution to take place, a strong feeling of regionalism in the masses is essential. Again, examiner is playing with words. When you talk about for devolution to take place, a strong feeling of regionalism in the masses is essential. Feeling of regionalism may have a different or a negative connotational sense also, that you are from this region, not from my region, so there should be impartiality, right? So there should be partiality. So this kind of feeling we get from this. The feeling of regionalism is essential, whereas what the para says, first line, there has been a significant trend worldwide towards regionalism in government. Regionalism in government means the localization of the power, and masses must have a strong feeling of regionalism, may have double meaning, I mean the other sense also. That's why D is wrong, and the correct option is B. C, devolution to be successful requires a democracy in which there is a free expression of the will of the people at lower level and their active participation at the grassroots levels. That is the first and foremost thing. And I suppose it's clear to you now. So I chose these passages this because they were of good standard, and the other options too also, other options appear to make a kind of, appears to give them the correct option a competition here. However, you are supposed to be watchful till the end and find out if there is a connotational sense, if there is a double meaning, if there is some vagueness, compare it with the correct options. So passage 7, someone was doubtful. Yes, it is talking about the IMF has pointed out that the fast growing economies of Asia face the risk of falling into middle income trap. Then author tells you what is middle income trap. And the IMF identifies a number of causes of middle income trap, none of which is surprising, right? So all the reasons have been mentioned, but the broad overall cause, says IMFS, is a collapse in the growth of productivity. Fast growing economies of Asia. The other options, again we will go by elimination, mostly elimination method you have to apply, most logical inference you have to be asked. So if you go to option D, it says as regards growth of productivity, the performance of Asian economies is not satisfactory. Not satisfactory. Asian economies, do remember passage is talking about those fat growing Asian economies. So it is an Asian economies means any country's economy that falls in Asia, that is in Asia. So of course D is not correct. It has simply generalized. So always be watchful of the groups that author has created in the passage, and then generalization is there in D option. C says there is no hope at all for emerging Asian economies to sustain growth momentum. No hope at all. You must have noticed the the extremism in this option. C is not correct because author has not said that now they cannot correct it. They are facing this middle income trap problem, but whether they will be able to mend it or not, author has not made any comment on that, so you are not supposed to choose that. B option says falling into middle income trap is a general characteristic of fast growing economies, and falling into middle income trap is a general characteristic of fast growing economies. It means that it is going to be applied on all economies. So this reverse of the theory is written here. Fast growing economies face the risk of falling into middle income trap. However, on that basis, we can't say that falling into middle income trap is a general characteristic of fast growing economies. General characteristics of fast growing. So be it a fast growing economy of any country, not just Asia, it becomes, all they come in this group, under this rule, theory. Falling into middle income trap is a general characteristic of fast growing economies. A option says once a country reaches middle income stage, it runs the risk of falling productivity, which leads to stagnant incomes. So as per the argument structure, where the middle income trap, middle income stage, falling productivity, all this is mentioned, so that's why A is the best option. Option A is the best. So elimination was very important for this passage. Now anyone doubtful of passage 8? I think nobody has written about passage 8. Yes, relation between climate change and migration is not yet properly understood. Throughout the passage this is clear. Now again here you notice C option, just to highlight, climate change will be the most important reason for the migration of people in the future. Only climate change migration is mentioned here, caused by climate change, such migration. But it will be the most important. So you notice that nth time actually we are coming across this superlative degree. Various causes are mentioned, no comparison is done, but author says this cause is the most important one. Similarly here, open defecation passes, open defecation is the most serious problem. Here it is climate change will be the most important reason. So this is incorrect option. Actually, the passage is not talking about that we must find the ways and means to stop further climate change. We are supposed to choose, since most superlative is written, then we have to see that which option is actually is a logical deduction based on the entire argument or the main argument of the author. So B doesn't come in that category because climate change caused migration is mentioned in the passage, and the focus or the emphasis is on that we are not yet ready, or we have not given it the recognition properly, we have not understood. Passage number 9, some students have written, it talks about AQI, right? And then it mentions what AQI is, how it is useful. AQI is most useful when lots of people data are, when lots of pollution data are being gathered and when pollution levels are normally, but not always low. In such cases, pollution level will spike for a few days. The public can quickly take preventive action, like staying indoors in response to an air quality warning. So it's a warning system, and it helps in this way that if it is high, then people simply they stay indoors. However, unfortunately, that is not urban India. Pollution levels in many large cities Indian cities are so high that they remain well above any health or regulatory standards for large part of the year. So then author mentions if our index stays in the red or dangerous region day after day, there is not much anyone can do other than getting used to ignoring it. Well, how long you can stay indoors? Then the very purpose of AQI loses out its significance because now people cannot stay for long because it is there, it becomes a norm. So the correct option is C option. Air quality index is not helpful to the residents of many of our large cities. As the author has said, pollution levels in many large Indian cities are so high, right? So of course it is not helpful because it is an indicator that means because of high AQI you should stay indoors. However, D option is wrong because it says in every city public awareness about pollution problem should increase. It has nothing to do with the passage. Moreover, it talks about every city. Passage talks about large cities, and option D does not talk about the point that has been raised here. Awareness about pollution problem should increase. So D loses out. Option B, there is absolutely no need for equality index in our country. Absolutely no need extreme. Our governments are not responsible enough to keep we don't know whether governments are responsible or not responsible. So you were supposed to choose the best option. Passage number 9 is done. Somebody has written as passage 14. 9 के बाद सीधा 14 में doubt है या any other doubt? Okay, seen 14. So next passage 11 also doubtful. Madan has doubt in passage number 11. Madan, passage number 11 में this is option C is wrong because it says eco agriculture should be permitted in protected areas, whereas the passage says that it was out of that protected areas. You look at bee pollination is more effective when agricultural fields are closer to natural or semi-natural habitat. They are closer to, not inside. So C loses out. Option D says the yield of food crops will be very high if eco-agricultural practices are adopted to cultivate them. Will be very high if eco-agricultural practices are adopted to cultivate them. But the point raised in the passage is that their location is mentioned here. And option A talks about that location. Agriculture practices that enhance biodiversity can often increase farm output and reduce the vulnerability to disasters. As per the given example that these places were less affected, the vulnerability to disaster is justified. Can often increase farm output. Look at this. Can often increase farm output also as per the examples. D option says the yield of food crops will be very high. Option B says all the countries of the world should be encouraged to replace eco-agriculture with conventional agriculture, which is irrelevant. So 11. Next is passage 14. In passage number 14, the answer should be B. Labor reforms are required in India to make optimum user of its vast labor force productively. You see, in this passage, by 2020, when the global economy is expected to run short of 56 million young people, India with its huge surplus of 47 million could fill the gap. It is in this context, but that can be done. Whereas the context is that labor reforms are often cited as the way to unlock double-digit growth in India. Right? So labor reforms have been mentioned in this one. This force was in agriculture. So over last decade, the compound annual growth CAGR of employment has slowed to 0.5% with about during last year when the labor force increased by about 50 million. Okay, so labor reforms are required in India. This is the best. India must control its population growth. Now, nowhere population growth is described in the passage. See, India is poised to achieve the double-digit growth very soon. Poised means intended to achieve double-digit, but it is conditional. Author says in this context, the labor reforms are often cited as the way to unlock double-digit. So, you have to go for the labor reforms to unlock this double-digit growth. So, C does not because we don't know. Poised means that intended to do, बस होने वाला है. अब how do you know that labor reforms are there on the anvil or not? D says India is capable of supplying the skilled young people to other countries. Is capable of, but labor reforms is required there, because number, in terms of the number, it is mentioned in the first sentence that India could fill the gap. However, there are other things involved like labor reforms, why it is required, maybe the skill required and all that. So D is not the best option, B is the correct answer. ओहो 14 आपने करा लिया यार, अब मुझे 13 बता रहे हो. No issues. 13 passage. देखिए इस passage में it's very clear कि in the last decade the world's gross GDP has increased by 50%, whereas inclusive wealth has increased by a mere 6%. In recent decade, GDP-driven economic performance has only harmed, focus on this line, only harmed inclusive wealth like human capital and natural capital like forests. The GDP-driven growth only has harmed the human capital and the natural capital. Then the author gives you in the last part the data to convey his point. The data is here. So keep that point on mind and then choose the option. So of course, option B, the growth driven by GDP only is neither desirable nor sustainable. Yes, because it is going to affect human capital and natural capital, forest and all, right? GDP driven growth only, growth driven by GDP only. That is according to the para. So I suppose it's clear. Now it says option A says more emphasis should be laid on the development of natural capital. Fine. Okay, we cannot dismiss it कि anti-inference तो नहीं है. However, human capital is also mentioned that is shrinking. So it is not included in this point. C option, the economic performance of the countries of the world is not satisfactory. How? It is very generalized one, right? Countries of the world, in general, all countries it is talking about not satisfactory. In what sense it is not satisfactory? There may be some countries, a few countries maybe, who have taken care of not only the GDP but but the human capital and natural capital as well. We don't know. So it has generalized. That's why C loses out. D says the world needs more human capital under the present circumstances. More human capital needs, fine, but the natural capital and only GDP driven growth, that is also part of the of the passage. So best option is B, that author is intended to say, because most is mentioned. Now we are done. Any other passage? 14 हो गया. 18 next, last one somebody has raised, this one. This passage, to understand the nature and quantity of government proper for man, it is necessary to attend to his character. Okay. As nature created him for social life, she fitted him for the station she intended. In all cases, she made his natural wants greater than his individual powers. No one is capable without the aid of society of supplying his own wants. Yes. And those wants, acting upon every individual, impel the whole of them into society. So, the natural wants, needs, and the power. So, want and need was always greater than the power given to an individual, and this forces him or compels him to be dependent on others, to be and this way the society comes into existence. That's the structure. Option A, nature has created a great diversity in human society. It is talking about how society came into beginning. It is just saying great diversity. So it is not the valid inference. Most logical inference should be based on the argument author is trying to establish. B, any given human society is always short of its wants. I mean, this is not taking care of this. Any given human society is always short of its wants. This is what something that has author said, but it is not the point that he is trying to establish. So B is. C, social life is a specific characteristic of man. It's a specific characteristic of man, it means the social life could not be found in other species. How we know that it is a specific characteristic of man? You know. So it may be general one also, maybe some other species like animals, like elephants and all that, they have the social life. So हो सकता है और किसी में हो. So D is the right answer. Diverse natural bonds force man towards social system as per the last line. This is the valid option. So we are done with the inference questions. Good standard questions were given. Now, if you look back at the, I mean the kind of questions we solved earlier in the very beginning when it started here. I mean these questions would look like a cakewalk. Passage number 2, overwhelming number, and the options, you know, the horse played, Indian currency, and all these passages. So I started with a simple passage, and now the complex inferences you have done. And out of these 38-40 questions that you have solved, try to acquire 80% of accuracy. Suppose you have done 10 questions, so 8 must be correct, right? So 80% of accuracy is required, and I think some of you, or I think maybe many of you, are touching that level. So dear, after this, let me start with a new question. The only logical question is left, that is the question number, I mean we have discussed till now among the logical family, logical questions. I am writing just the initials because you all already know. Corollary we have discussed. We started with corollary, then we discussed implication. We have done conclusion. And then we solved inference, right? And now we will solve the questions of assumption. But before assumption questions, before I take up these questions, I want to show you that UPSC earlier, before the exam was qualifying, they used to ask some decision making questions, and they are really very interesting in this sense that the basics of RC are also applied here, how well you have read the given situation and the minute details, and then you are supposed to choose the best option. So the questions of decision making were like based on natural on your presence of mind, or some questions were demanding your or intended to evaluate your personality level, communication, or certain action in an emergency situation. So situational intelligence type of questions are there. Just to freshen you up, I am going to show you these questions. So I will start with question number 8. All are supposed to write the answer, right? So for question number 8, just write A, B, C, D. Read it carefully, and I think 4 or 5 questions will solve. After that, we'll start assumptions. Alright, so you have solved question number 8. Everybody is through. Any student who is taking more time can go for the screenshot, because I will have to show you question number 7. After 5 questions, I will discuss the answers. You know, your contextual analysis ability plays a very important role here. Just like in RC, RC was dependent on two components. Number one, language. You must know the language, and then you should be able to contextually analyze the passage. So, the contextual analysis. Here again, these questions evaluate you on these two. Alright, so 7th is done. Now, question number 6. All right, question number 5 on your screen. Question number 4. All right, so you will be able to relate it with the RC passages, in the sense that paying attention to the relevant part and the evaluation of that, and then ability to connect with the context, all these will play a very crucial role that we have been doing all along. We will be, of course, this will be very handy. This practice will be handy in your assumption questions. So I suppose everybody is through with question number 4. Some people, yes, almost everyone has given the answer. For fourth option, you have chosen option C. Okay. If I ask, somebody has chosen D also, Biswajit has chosen D, which says A and B both. You inform the police and inquire first whether. How do you know that the cylinders are filled with gas? It is given LPG cylinders are there, but they could be empty also or filled with gas. So the truck has overturned. How do you know that the cylinders, why will you call the fire service? Because it means you expect that there is a chances of fire. How do you know that there is a chance of fire? Whether the cylinders are empty, then there is no chance of fire. So how are you sure that the cylinders are not empty, they are filled with gas? I cannot wait for your answer. So of course, your C option is correct, but the sentence that gives you the clue that the cylinders are not empty is this one. The people could be in danger, because there will be no danger to the people with the empty cylinders. So the people could be in danger to call the fire service. It means valid inference is that yes, there is a chance of fire. Option D, another option loses out, because police is not the the relevant authority to deal with the situation. Ultimately they will come and call the ultimately they will have to call, the police will have to call the fire service. So आपका answer सही है, C option. Good. Passage number 5. This is a particular situation where communication is being evaluated, and it's not your work area. However, your boss calls you and asks you to pick up his son from his school and drop him at his home. So option A will be very rash, which says, sorry sir, I can't do this. Some people have chosen it. Sorry sir, I can't do this. Without understanding that why the boss is asking you. Is it because he's bossy, he's got some attitude, he wants to actually down you, or the reason is that there may be some very genuine reason also, and as a member of his team he can rely on you. Maybe there is a threat to his son's security, safety, right? So he relies on you. So by saying sorry sir, I can't do this is actually too rash and too dry. Can I have the keys of your car, sir? It is again now very submissive and kind of flattering, C option, my pleasure sir, but can I request the peon or driver to do this service for you? This is the best option, because in this option, in a suggestive way, you are asking your boss that why are you asking me to do this job? I mean, peon and driver are the right person. So you giving him a suggestive, notion, suggestive message. I don't know how to drive a car, sir. If it is a lie, then it is of course not working. If it is truth, then it does not take the challenge in the question. So C is the best option, which majority of people have chosen, right? Can I request the peon and driver? So nobody wants to, nobody likes no, right? So if you say no without saying no, like you are directly saying here no. So say no without saying no, that is the best way. So passage number 5, so question number 5, C was the best option. I have explained the reason. Question number 6 very clearly mentions in the question that you have to be assigned to day-to-day work. Hence you can't do anything, you can't play with the policy decisions, like something new will be done. Why new will be done? At the first place you have been not assigned. So just logistical issues you need to take care of. So option A is the best one. Question number 6, option A. Yes, many students have chosen option A, very smart. No one should have been mesmerized by hypnotized by option D. Something new will be done, right? And option B, you will create conducive environment. That's a positive thing, fine. But it says and permit the staff to work according to their choice. Now, who are you to actually change the business lines and the responsibilities, job responsibilities of the individual, because you have been only assigned to day-to-day work. So if you say that people can work according to their own choice, then what if it is bound to create some conflicts. So it is not good. To work according to choice can only happen when there is a very small team and people are highly experienced, so they know very well. Otherwise you can't do this. Now question number 7 is, you are extremely punctual and reach your office. So punctual person means of course he will be, he must have been noticed by the others that he is a punctual person. Punctuality is visible from outside. Everybody has chosen option A, but I am sorry to say it's not the best option. This time you did not connect with the context. However, one day your vehicle breaks down, you get late and get caught. Get caught means, why are you reading too much into it? It means that you have been seen by the people, coming late. It is not just that you could, you simply sneaked in. So you get late and get caught. But nowhere it is given that a show cause notice has been issued against you. So option A is as if you are answering a show cause notice. It says you will inform the boss for late coming in detail without being asked, verbally and in writing. So it is too much. Option B and C are weak. Option D is the best option. Start your work silently. Nobody chose that. So ability to connect with the context is very important in RC, very important here as well. You're not in school, you are working and you are extremely punctual person, so it means everybody knows. Your boss knows. So writing should have been noticed. That was too much out of proportion. And question number 8 is very interesting, and so many students have chosen for 8th, the students have chosen B option. What is the question? The question is, who is a skilled employee? And a skill is the expertise on doing. Your expertise, how adept you are on doing something, right? Option B does not answer that. He says comes to office daily, works according to law and is obedient to the boss. It is talking about the personal qualities. It is an attribute. It is a character. So at the very first place, it is not the answer to the question. D is the answer. And I notice only one student has chosen D, Anis. Parth also. Yeah, very watchful of both of you. You understood the question. So it was the D option. Comes to the office late, leaves early. It means he gets shorter span of time, right? And yet he is able to complete his work. It means he is expert on doing the work. So read the question and answer to the question need to be found out. All right, interesting. I use this just to rejuvenate you and, make you ready for the next type of question. And the next question is assumption. So what is an assumption? Like we start with the same thing, that if you, in case you are going to solve a question, the first thing is that you must know what does it mean or what kind of information it seeks as an answer. So what is an assumption? The questions of assumption, supposed to read it. So is that possible that author uses a premise but does not write it? Yes, very much possible. Spandan, I have already given answer for question number 4. I'm sorry that I have just seen your question. I just saw your question. Is like question number 4, if cylinders were full of gases, and it means the cylinders were filled with gases because the people could be in danger is already written. My question was that I posed a question to inquire whether you notice the relevant part for your answer or not. That how do you know that the cylinders are filled with gas? So your answer is that I know it because it is written there the people could be in danger, and there is no danger from the empty cylinders. It means there is a chance of fire. So the fire service will be called. So coming to the question, assume, everybody knows assumption. Assume that something you consider to be true, you take into your supposition or your belief that something is true. So when author has believed in something, and based on that something, he says something else, like he makes his argument, he gives his main point. So assumption is like a hidden premise, not written in the paragraph, in the argument, support of his conclusion. Well, right, so here is an example. Priya is an IAS aspirant, so she must be hardworking. And you notice here that the author has not mentioned his belief. This is his assumption. Just this fact that Priya is an IAS aspirant, from this fact or from this premise, the author has jumped to the conclusion. The conclusion is this part, even the indicator is written, so she must be hardworking. It means what does the author believe in? That belief part is written here in the red ink, in the bracket. Priya is an IAS aspirant and all IAS aspirants are hardworking, so she must be hardworking. So assumption is the author's belief. The author's belief. You are not going to find out your own assumption. It's not like inference. Inference is like your own deductions from the given information. Assumption is that you are going to find out something that author believes in. And how do you find it? Because of the argument that he writes, the conclusion that he writes, and the premises that he writes, we try to find out the missing link that he has written. There is some missing link, like there is a missing link here, right? Priya is an IS aspirant, and from there he jumps to the conclusion, so she must be hardworking. So what he believes in? Of course, he believes in this thing, that all IS aspirants are hardworking. If this red ink, whatever is written in bracket, if it is not true, and if assumption is not true, the conclusion will also fail. The author's argument will collapse. So assumption is something on which is the belief, or is the foundation on which the author's conclusion or author's argument, the entire edifice stands on it. It is just like a foundation to a building. Foundation is not seen, hence assumption is not written, but the entire building is, it gives the base to the building. So argument, if the argument is the building, then assumption is the foundation. I hope thoda clear ho gaya hoga. Now these are the definition. Assumption is a hidden premise, something which is assumed, supposed, and taken for granted when someone says something. So different perspectives of assumption. Take a screenshot or just read it. I hope it's done. So points to be remembered while evaluating assumption. So if an author says A because of B, A as a result of B, it means valid assumption is B leads to A. A therefore B, assumption is A leads to B. And similarly other options like A even after B, A despite of B, A in spite of B. The hidden link is that assumption is usually A does not occur when B occurs. For example, the house was robbed in spite of the tight security in that area. The house was robbed in spite of the tight security. It means the valid assumption is that the tight security does not allow the robbery to take place. Yeah, the tight security in fact checks the robbery, right? So it is a deterrent to robbery, and these are the valid assumption. But students, you must write one line that so that you remember it. One line you must write that whenever an assumption question is asked, we are supposed to find out the assumption for the author. It means what does the author believe in, right? So in a question of assumption, we are supposed to find out the belief or supposition of the author, not ours. As a reader, it is not your assumption is being asked there, right? So belief is a very wide term, Biswajit. Whereas assumption, we are talking as a belief in a very narrowed, in a very limited case, limited scenario. For example, if an argument has been made, in that case, what has been believed, and so the argument has been, it depends on that. As the example was that Priya is an IS aspirant, so she must be hardworking. Like if I say, Biswajit, that you are Bengali, so you must be intelligent. It means I believe in, or as I have assumed in this case, that Bengalis are intelligent. So dear, ये समझिए कि the belief could be, a blind belief, could be religious belief, could be different beliefs, but here we are talking and aligning assumption with belief in the context of the argument. ठीक है? अब चलते हैं कि कैसे आप आंसर निकालेंगे. The first point you have written that we are supposed to find out the assumption, and actually it means that assumption of the author, right? That's point number 1. Write down point number 2. The conclusion will always be given there. In a question of an assumption, conclusion will always be given. So what you are supposed to do? I'm talking about your approach. First point you have written, it is author's assumption. Second point, conclusion will always be given. right? So first point, second point, author's assumption, conclusion given, third point, and third point you are supposed to write down a sentence. Identify C, I am using the initials, C मतलब conclusion, identify C, so para ये statement में C लिखा होगा conclusion, identify C and notice how the author has, notice how the author has arrived at C by following P. And the author has written premises, maybe one premise, yani premises are the evidences or reasons, and then he goes to the C, right? So your job is to identify C and find out or observe how the author has jumped to C by following the P's, by following the premise. The correct option, keep writing, the correct option for assumption should bridge the gap between P and C. The correct option for assumption should bridge the gap between P and C, right? Say full stop. Since there will be a gap between the P and C, since there will be a gap between P and C, so the correct option will supply the missing link of information. So the correct option will supply the missing link of the information. So the entire approach I have mentioned, right? Okay, what you have to do, identify the conclusion in the given para, observe how the author has arrived at it, because he must have given the reasons. Like author said, Priya is an IAS aspirant, so she must be hardworking. So from this being IAS aspirant, which is a fact, which is a premise, he comes to the conclusion. So correct option will be bridging the gap between P and C, right? It will give you some information, some new piece of information that will fill in the missing link. So the argument will be completed, right? Let me cite an example. So point number 3 is clear. Now, suppose an author says that it's very hot tonight. The day the other part I write here down under. The day must have been cloudy. It's very hot tonight is the fact, is the premise. So the day, I mean, so is not written here, the indicator, but we get to know that yes, the day must have been cloudy is the conclusion, because author makes this conclusion on the basis of the night being hot, very hot. So from P to C, this trajectory, if you follow, the correct assumption should bridge the gap. It means there is some piece of information missing between the two, and our option must fill in that, the correct option for assumption, right? So assumption, since it is not written, so what kind of assumption will be correct? Such an assumption that says, or such an option that says that cloudy days, so I write cloudy days, C days, lead to hot night. or maybe very hot night. This is the valid assumption. If this one is not correct, then the entire argument deflates. So the assumption must always be true. It should always be in the must be true category for the conclusion to be established. So next, so that is the example, and I suppose it is clear. So up to point number 3 you have written. Write down point number 4 for assumption. It is in the must be true category. Must be true, not may be true. It is in the must be true category, not may be true category. So you are supposed to choose an answer that is must be true, that must be true for the argument to hold. Cannot settle down with an option that is a possibility only. So these 4 points you have written. First of all, assumption for the author. Second thing, it is the conclusion will always be given. So identify that and identify how the author, look at the structure, how the author has gone from P to C, and then look at, that on this structure you find out that missing link kaun supply kar raha hai, which option is supplying you the missing link between the two, and the correct option should always be in the must be true category, not may be true category. I suppose it is clear. Let's go to some questions and we'll come back for the discussion then. So here goes on the examples. Like the statement you look at. The increase in the improved number of educated women. Assumption is there are educated women in the society. Yes, correct. If an adjective is attached unconditionally to any subject, it must be assumed that the subject does have the quality. For example, the talkative nature of Rekha attracted everybody's attention. Rekha is talkative. The jubilant spectators sang patriotic song. The spectators were happy. These are the valid assumptions. Now read point number 5. Or take the screenshot and you can read it later on. Here the point wise the detailing is given so that you don't feel confused. It is talking about suppose a fact or report or observation, study or data A followed by a suggested course of action B is given if some negative aspect of A is mentioned. Like hiccups in smart city project can be overcome through strategic planning. So hiccups in smart city project is A, can be overcome through strategic planning is B. The valid assumptions can be A needs improvement. Yes, it means a smart city project needs improvement because that's suggested from the second valid assumption is the negative aspects of A. Smart cities negative aspects are undesirable. Yes, that is the reason the solution is suggested. Yeah, how to overcome those. B will improve A. Yes, it is inbuilt because this is the if it does not improve, then why at the first place it was suggested? So the course of action that has been recommended, of course, that will have a positive impact, will improve it. So the author's assumption, according to author's belief, somebody who has said this line must be agree, or all these statements must be the part of his supposition, his belief. They will get a yes. Fourth one, the advantages of adopting B far outweigh the disadvantages of not adopting it. Yes, of course, correct. That's why this course of action is being suggested. So these are the valid inferences related to this. Advertisement and notices and appeal, point number 6. Screenshot ले लीजिए. इसमें भी देखिए, when the advertisement or notice is given, it means it is bound to have some impact. The author of the statement or advertisement or notices believes in that. And advertisement or appeal or notice does have some impact. Otherwise, why at the first place it would have been written? So that is valid. Second, in the case of an advertisement, that which is being highlighted is looked for and expected by the people. Yes, expected by or looked for by the people. Because if there is any warning, then yes, we expect that the warning should be there, right? Or the notice should be there. Third one, in the case of a public interest notice, it is the duty of those who issue it to issue such notices. Yes, valid. It is their duty. That's why notice is there. Fourth, fifth, sixth, all this point. In case of a public interest notice, what is being advised must be beneficial for people and is not, its non-practice is harmful in some way, yes. Because the authority, the relevant authority that is issuing it, so is supposed to be the custodian, supposed to be responsible. So whatever recommendation it gives must have, will have the positive impact. Fifth, in case of an appeal, the reason for issuing it exists, yes. In case of an official notice, the effect of its implementation will be beneficial for the organization, yes. Look at this notice, this warning, don't lean against the doors. Notice warning by Delhi Metro Rail Corporation. They have written it, don't lean against the doors. It means leaning against the doors will be harmful. It also means another valid assumption is, one assumption is that leaning against the door is harmful. The other assumption is that this notice, this warning will have somewhat impact or effect on the commuters. Otherwise, why it would have been written? It also means that DMRC is responsible to give the notice. It is expected of them. So various assumptions you can deduce from this. Now I give you these statements, right? Your time of your test, so small questions I am giving you, just the statements. There are 4 statements, I think, yes, 4 statements. You remember that you are going to find out the valid assumption. The 2 assumptions are given, you need to find out. The answer will be both, A, matlab only one assumption. So you will only write just one, ya only 2, ya both, ya neither. So these are your options. And somebody who has written this, what he believes in, what is his part of his supposition, or whether these assumption, the 2 assumptions given or the assumption given is actually aligning with that idea or not. So dear, 3 minutes you have, 2 to 3 minutes, and you are supposed to solve these 3 statements on your screen. Go ahead. Everybody has done the first one. Now second and third on your screen. थोड़ा जल्दी करेंगे. Just a statement, बहुत आसान है. You find out the any relevant information given in the original statement that gives you the clue. तो given information से ही आप वहाँ तक पहुँचते हैं. Now statement number 4. Alright, so the answers for the first statement, both assumptions are valid. Study material prepared by XYZ is of good quality. That is the reason it is mentioned to get high score in the exam. Please don't involve yourself. I mean, don't make an inference here. The author, what he believes in. So somebody who has said, ki read this material to get high score in the exam, it means he believes that it is of good quality. According to author, you have to choose. So author's perspective must be understood. Getting high score in the exam is desirable, of course, because this is the basis, high score to sell the material. On this basis, it means if it were not desirable, the author would not have mentioned getting high score, read this material just to get high scores in the exams. So both are valid assumptions. There is a trick. In fact, if you want to cross-check your statement, just go for the denial. If you deny it and then you read it with the given statement, they become contradictory, and that is a proof of its accuracy, it being correct. So getting high score in the exam, let's say that getting high score in the exam is not desirable. If it is not desirable, then why this material of XYZ publication is being sold, is being recommended to get high score in the exam, right? So dear, this one is. The second one, again, both assumptions are valid. Both are valid. A teacher of tailoring may not be available. That's why it says in the absence of a teacher is written there. So there is a possibility of not available, may not be available. Tailoring can be learned with the help of the book. So that is why this book is invested to guide the layman to study tailoring. Otherwise, at the first place, if your tailoring cannot be learned with the help of a book, then why a book would have been written? Why this book is invested to guide? This would have been not written. So both assumptions are valid. For statement number 3, by pure and natural pearls of company X. Advertisement. Artificial pearls can be prepared. Yes, from the word natural it is mentioned. Suppose a thing that is only possible to that is not possible to be artificially made. It is only available in the natural form and nature has made it. So there is no point of writing natural in that case. ठीक है, तो फिर आप उसमें नेचुरल नहीं बोलते हैं. जैसे नेचुरल वाटर क्या मतलब है. सो हियर बाय प्योर एंड नेचुरल पर्ल्स इट मीन्स artificial pearls can be prepared. The very presence of this word, highlight of this word natural suggests कि this one is a valid assumption. Second, people do not mind paying more for pure and natural pearls. Nothing has been mentioned about the people's behavior or whether natural pearls are expensive. So no information is given about this. It means it is data inadequate for this case. Only first one is a valid assumption, second is wrong. Now, statement number 4, both assumptions are valid. Yes, both are valid. So, assumption questions are interesting, however, they are confusable as well. So, I just show you a couple of more questions from the worksheet. This is the assumption worksheet you are supposed to open and go for passage number 1 and 2. Don't forget the approach that I dictated. Identify C and P and look for the among the options that which option is bridging the gap, supplying the missing piece of information. जल्दी से इन दोनों के आंसर करिए. These are the last 2 questions. Alright, so the answers for passage number 1, the answer is option A. Somdatta, there is nothing. I will address your question after a while. Afterwards, you see, student rating is a valid indicator of the professor performance because the author has said that Professor Singh is a better teacher than Professor Bedi, right? So Professor Singh is a better teacher than Professor Bedi. How? Because of the student rating. The student rating is the premise here, and the conclusion is Professor Singh is a better teacher than Professor Bedi. So it means the author believes in the student's rating. He finds it a valid indicator. Otherwise, why would he have established this point that Professor Singh is better teacher than the other one, according to the student rating? So this is A is the best option. Option C, the better teacher has to be the one whose teaching methods are more engaging and relevant to the, maybe, however, we have to choose the must be true option, and from this given information, we get to know if you follow the trajectory, only option A is filling the gap. Option D, the better teacher is the one whose students perform best in the exam, maybe, again, but it is both C and D are not according to the argument. You are supposed to choose the option according to the argument. Don't go by your own notions, because what is the author's assumption to make this claim? That assumption is option A. Now B option, student will rate a professor as better than other if they feel that the professor is more famous. Now how do we know that how the students have rated a professor? It is not part of the argument here at all, so it is totally irrelevant. So passage number 1, answer should have been A. Passage number 2, similarly the answer should be A. 10 years of practice ensures typing efficiency. Yes, because here the author is saying ki hire Rajaram because he has 10 years of typing experience. Therefore, if you are looking for any typist, just go for Rajaram. So it means hire Rajaram. This is the conclusion, recommendation. On what basis? The premise is that he has 10 years of typing experience. 10 years of typing experience. So hire him. It means 10 years of practice. This is what the author believes in. Must be true. The other options are maybe, may not be, but we don't have the data for them. So second, it should be option A. Some students have chosen second. C. C says Rajaram's job profile is the best that new employer is going to get. But author has not said ki hire him because his profile is going to be the best. So you are not supposed to make your own, interpretations from the statement. Rather look for that what the person, the author must have believed in, because he has written this argument. तो आपको मैंने approach बोला है कि identify C, identify P, and the correct option will be on the same trajectory connecting both P and C. तो वो आप करोगे, ठीक है? Suppose author has said कि Rajaram is very handsome, so hire him. So author's argument, according to the author's premise and conclusion, we are supposed to choose the option. ठीक है? तो आप अपना काम नहीं करेंगे. तो both options should have been, must have been correct. Now a student has written a doubt. Somdatta, your doubt I address now. You have mentioned something related to this by pure and natural pulse of company X. Now by pure or natural pulse of company X, Somdatta, this statement does not mention whether the natural pulse are costly, expensive or not, or cheap. They could be cheap, they could be expensive, कुछ भी हो सकता है price. Nothing has been mentioned here about the price. So how can you assume anything about people's behavior, that people do not mind paying more for pure and natural pearls? We don't know whether, so natural pearls, artificial pearls we can accept here. But whether natural pearls are expensive or artificial pearls are expensive, or one is cheap, the other one is more cheap or less cheap, since nothing has been mentioned about the price, so there is no point of going for second statement. How do you know the behavior of the customers? I mean the potential buyers, that they don't mind. So you have to look for the data in the given statement. So please remember that assumption requires the data as well. So see you, I suppose Amrita it's clear to you now. So 2 out of 2, Partha, Pami and Tista and Biswajit, and I think everybody should have got 2 out of 2. Yes, Biswajit and Nimai has got 2, both correct. So has right. So it should have been both, right? So post lunch I will give you more questions of assumption. There is another type of question of assumption as well that I have not discussed. I have only discussed one type till now. So see you post lunch at 2 p.m. And everybody should attend the class at 2 p.m. sharp, so that I can, because post lunch not only this sheet will complete, but also some test material or practice sheet will be given. So इसलिए टाइम थोड़ा सा कम होता है, आपको जल्दी करना होगा उस समय.